Well, welcome all you folks here to Sty Times. Hey, episode 2. Yeah. Well, the first show was quite successful. It was awesome. All the folks that showed up loved it. Loved it. The way we start things out is we get right onto the topic. I mean, yeah. I'm so glad to see all the folks over in the chat chatting away. That's awesome. Again, that chat is there for you. So make use of it. Chat along with each other and excuse me. But I can't read the chat very often the way I got things going here. So I'm not ignoring anybody. Just the chat is there for you guys that carry a discussion. Just go for it. Go for it. Interact with each other. Meet new people. Hey, everybody, share it out. Get some new friends over here. Let's meet a bunch of new folks. That'd be awesome. And I want to remind everybody at the top of the chat, you will see a link so that you can give me feedback on the shows. Every show will have that link pinned at the top of the comments. And it'll pop up. That link will pop up once in a while. In fact, it's going to pop up right now. There it is. There's that link out in the chat. Anybody wants to give feedback on the show, you'll see that pop up once in a while during the show. This is a 1 hour show, and this evening's topic is cabin fever. Cabin fever. We're going to talk a little bit about the history of cabin fever and just what really is cabin fever. A lot of people use the term loosely, oh, I'm suffering from cabin fever. I just can't take it. It's been too long of a winter. I just can't handle it. I got cabin fever. Well, there's different degrees of cabin fever. And we're going to be talking about those here tonight. And as I did in the first show, at about the half-hour mark, I'm going to run a little clip of all the channel members that I have, so that you can see some awesome folks. I mean, all the channels that are featured in that little clip are awesome channels. You got to meet those folks. They're great folks. So on with cabin fever. I have cabin fever right now, but I'm recovering because I'm doing something about it. There is a cure to cabin fever. There's a few cures. There's a few different ways you can cure a bad case of cabin fever. Now, what is cabin fever? Well, all right. Now, cabin fever pretty much so shows itself in, okay, we suffer from anxiety. We end up with feeling depressed. We have a depressed mood. Sometimes we're feeling aggressive. The aggression comes on stronger than usual. We have impulsive behavior. We do things that we just do on impulse. We tend to get irritable. Little things irritate us. We start feeling like we've got low self-esteem. Like, we don't even care for ourselves. We're just like, I don't even like my own company. We end up with a poor appetite. We don't eat right. And then all of a sudden you realize, my short-term memory is kind of messed up. My memory is just messing with me. I just don't remember things like I should. Those are all symptoms of cabin fever. And a lot of people think, well, cabin fever is caused by being alone too long. Well, that's one of the causes. Now, if a person is a person, a people person, and they isolate themselves and they stay away from people for long extended periods of time, those symptoms start to show up. And it's because of our lack of interaction with others, with other people. But that doesn't truly make cabin fever a real issue, because you can cure it simply by having human contact, right? Now, true cabin fever is triggered by us not having high enough levels of serotonin. And the thing with serotonin is it gives us, the way serotonin works in our systems, what it does is it helps avoid the mood swings, the depression. It helps us avoid the anxiety and restlessness. And serotonin levels drop when you become isolated and you're not out getting fresh air. You're not out, how do I put it? You're not getting any sun. Now, what can we do to keep our serotonin levels especially in the winter months, when we're all hepped up indoors? We spend the winter indoors. Now, there's a lot of folks go out and they do a lot of outdoor activities in the winter. Now, I'm going to talk about that. Are they truly getting the benefits of being outdoors in the winter? Just because they're out there, are they getting the benefits? They're not getting all the benefits. The benefit of being outdoors is you get out there and you take in sunlight. That sunlight raises your vitamin D levels. Now, vitamin D is essential in avoiding cabin fever. And a lot of people don't realize how much of an impact vitamin D actually has. And previous research has shown that vitamin D helps regulate the conversion of tryptophan, which is another chemical in our bodies that converts into serotonin. And tryptophan is a neurotransmitter that affects a variety of cognitive functions, including your mood, your decision making, your social behavior, impulsive behavior, social decision making, all types of things that relate to just how you deal with and how you present yourself in all different types of applications, just simple cognitive things. I've seen people suffering from cabin fever where they can't even play a game of solitaire by themselves. They get confused and upset, and next thing you know, they're throwing the cards across the room saying, I hate that game. And they used to love it, but their tryptophan conversion to serotonin has dropped so much that that all those typical behaviors have been altered and changed. Now, tryptophan is an essential amino acid. It can't be produced by the human body. It's not something your body produces, but it needs it. Okay. And that's odd. That's odd that, it's a chemical, it's an amino acid that we need, but yet our body can't produce it. Okay. The only way you can get tryptophan is through your diet. Okay? And where does tryptophan come into play in your diet? Tryptophan is its highest levels are in animal or plant-based proteins. Okay? A very high level of tryptophan is in milk. Well, they found in the early 1900s that, yeah, it was concentrated in milk proteins. So they always said, boy, if somebody during the winter is feeling really down, have them drink a lot of milk. That'll help. That'll help. Well, it did. They didn't know why, but it did. But today, unless you buy vitamin D fortified milk, you're not getting the benefits of the tryptophan that you would have back in the early 1900s. Why? Because most of our dairy comes from cows that spend almost their entire life indoors. They're not out in the pastures and getting all that sunlight, which that's what produces the tryptophans in the milk proteins, and the vitamin D content in the milk. So it's not there. So that's why they add vitamin D to milk products today. Another thing that's the thing is get your tryptophan levels up. It converts those tryptophans into serotonin, which helps you with your cognitive functions, your mood, your decision making, your social behavior, impulsive behavior, social decision making. Okay, so what if you're not a big milk drinker? Another way to help round off the effects of cabin fever, bananas. That's a big deal. Now, you think about that. Back in the early 1900s and prior, bananas weren't common. You know, they just weren't on every store shelf, and not every home had bananas. But today, bananas are easily gotten. Just go down to the corner store. You can get yourself bananas. Bananas are generally considered an energy boosting food, right? Gives you energy to eat bananas. Bananas are rich in magnesium, which relaxes muscles, which seems a little odd. Bananas are energy boosting, but yet it relaxes your muscles. Well, that's the thing. You go out there, magnesium is very important. If you're going to be exerting yourself physically and you got low magnesium levels, you're going to end up with Charlie horses, muscle aches, all kinds of issues. But if you keep the magnesium levels up, now your muscles relax and you can exert more energy without having the bad side effects. And that's because of the magnesium. Bananas also contain serotonin and melatonin, which encourage sleep. Now, isn't that weird? Eat bananas, it'll give you energy and make you feel better, but it's going to put you to sleep too. See, it's like the banana is what I consider activity neutral. You can eat a banana, exert yourself, it gives you energy, it makes you want to go exert yourself. After you exert yourself, it calms you because of the melatonin, and the serotonin helps your mind relax, and you can sleep better. Bananas, big deal. Another one is peanut butter. You want to help deter cabin fever? Eat a lot of peanut butter. It's loaded with tryptophan. And it's also been known to boost your metabolism, get your metabolism running. Peanut butter is like putting fuel in the furnace. So you can burn more calories while you sleep. and through the next morning. So I personally would recommend you eat peanut butter late in the day, and it will help your metabolism burn up a bunch of fuel while you sleep and into the next morning, into the next day. So it's great for your metabolism. I don't believe that the one area that doesn't get enough attention, as far as I'm concerned, is vitamin C. Vitamin C is important. Is it very important? Not just vitamin C is great for your immune system. You're not going to get as many colds, and it's going to be better. You're just, your whole health is going to be better. Well, that's true. That's true. Very true. But vitamin C in the winter is very important because your immune system is working in overtime throughout the winter. If you're helping it out with some vitamin C, now your body and your metabolism doesn't have to work as hard. The vitamin C is encouraging your immune system to stay top notch. That's one less thing that your body has to deal with. So eating a lot of citrus or anything with vitamin C in it is good for you. It's important. Make sure. Now, one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to overburden yourself with a ton of carbohydrates. If you're eating a lot of carbohydrates, sugars, that's just quick burn energy. And you start building a dependence on that sweetness. In that process, it also has a depressing effect on you. You want more sugar. And if you can't have it, you start feeling anxiety. And because of that craving. So try to avoid overdoing it on the carbohydrates. You do need it. If you're going to be real active, you're going to go out there, you're going to work hard today, you need enough carbs so that you got that energy to burn through the day. But I recommend you go with slow-acting carbohydrates, not fast-acting carbs, sitting there drinking pop all day and eating cookies and sugar, just raw sugars. No, eat real food with long-lasting carbs in it. It'll serve you a lot better. So, okay, there. Now we talked about symptoms. We talked about how you can avoid those symptoms. I did touch on getting outdoors in the winter. Here's one thing to keep in mind. People say, well, my vitamin D levels can't be that low. I'm outside all the time. I go out cross-country skiing, and I go out hiking, I go out snowshoeing. And I say, yeah, and every time I see you go out, your body's completely covered with a parka and snow pants and gloves, and just you're wearing a stocking cap where just your eyes are looking out. You're not getting the benefit of the sun. Your body's not generating vitamin D from the sunlight because you've hidden your body from it. You've covered yourself to the point where you're not absorbing all that. And there's people that swear up and down, I'm out there every single day, so my vitamin D levels are high. And I tell them, you're out there every single day hiding from the sun. You got that much of your face showing, and you're wearing sunglasses. No sun's getting to you. You might as well stay indoors and look out there. But actually, no, I wouldn't recommend that anyway. Get out there, get the fresh air. You need that fresh air. Don't hem yourself up in your house. Long periods of isolation are not healthy. That's just a no-brainer. You need to get out and take in some fresh air. I don't care if you just go stand on your front stoop and take some deep breaths and just, get that fresh air. Just do it at least once a day and get out there for half hour, 45 minutes to an hour, at least that much once a day. Just, you need it. You need it. It'll help you get through the winter. Okay. Now, I'm going to give you some actual examples of cabin fever. Now, I've read a couple of articles in the past about incidents related to cabin fever, and it's kind of the history of it. The cabin fever was very common back at the founding of this nation. Was very common because when the settlers first came over here, the first people coming over here to the U.S., when they started moving themselves west, a lot of times they spent long winters isolated. They'd build themselves a shelter, a home, a log cabin, whatever their home may be. And now keep in mind, it all makes sense. Most of these shelters, if they had a window, it was a window. Glass was not common. And outside of a city, glass was not common. They would take animal skins and shave them paper thin, and then they'd oil them and use those in their windows because they would allow some light in to the cabin. But it filtered out the sunlight. It allowed light in, but they didn't get the full benefits of the sunlight. They spent those long winters in a box, a dark box, not getting the amount of sunshine they need. Their diets were low in serotonin and vitamin D. They didn't have bananas. They didn't have peanut butter. They didn't have vitamin D supplements that they could take every morning. They didn't have dairy. They didn't have milk. And these folks would go out there and they'd sit out in the woods, these settlers, all winter long. Serotonin levels are dropping. Their vitamin D levels have dropped. On comes the anxiety, the depression, the mood swings. Their mental health was chemically falling apart. And by spring, they were so beat up from cabin fever that they were just dying to get out of their situation. So it was very common back in those early days. It improved when people started living in groups because they had a lot of social interaction. And they could tell if somebody was suffering from cabin fever. And they kind of had a general idea that, hey, we got to get them some kind of vitamin C, some citrus or something. We've got to get them to eat better because cabin fever affects the appetite. And you don't eat the things that will have the serotonin in them to help you out. So they knew diet was an important factor along with social interaction and regular social interaction. They didn't know that. Nowadays, do we have cabin fever? Absolutely. I said it at the beginning. I suffer from cabin fever. I've been telling people for the last several weeks, this cabin fever is just driving me nuts. I'm bumming. I can't wait till spring. I can't wait till summer. I got to get out of here. Well, I went and bought myself a bunch of bananas the other day. And yesterday I ran out of peanut butter. So I had to go out this morning. I got myself a nice big jar of peanut butter. And I'm loading up on peanut butter and bananas, guys. I also went and got myself a vitamin D supplement because I don't drink a lot of vitamin D fortified milk. So I got myself a supplement to help replace that vitamin D. Now this has just been today, already this evening, I'm feeling better. I'm actually feeling more positive about my outlook on things. Yesterday, it was just like, I don't know if I can make it until May. I don't know if I can do this. Well, now I'm looking forward to May. It's a ways off, but I'm looking forward to it again. So, there are ways for us to manage cabin fever. And yes, people today, in today's world, suffer from it. Now, here's something current affair. Our current times, we're in the middle of this COVID pandemic. And what have people done for the last year? We're going on a year now. Everybody's been isolating themselves. People are staying at home, indoors, only going out when they have to. We got to go get groceries. We got to go do this. We got to go do that. But we don't go out for wants. We only go out for needs. We're just staying at home. And people are wondering why there's so much depression and why the kids are worse than they've ever been. I mean, they're little animals. I mean, they're just aggressive, wild, and crazy. It's because we're all suffering from cabin fever. I guarantee you. Those that are suffering the most due to the isolation, due to the pandemic, are suffering from cabin fever. And there are ways to take care of that. And it's in your diet, a vitamin D supplement, or drink plenty of vitamin D fortified milk. Keep your vitamin D levels up. And the nice thing with eating certain things that, I'm back to bananas. People are probably saying, yeah, Sty's bloody bananas. But with bananas, they also give you enough of a level of melatonin that you can relax at the end of the day and sleep well. And I'm going to watch my sleep now the rest of this week and see if I start sleeping better. I've had some pretty rough nights the last few weeks, and I'm going to see if the melatonin levels in the bananas are enough to bring me down at the end of the day. Excuse me, the whole key to this discussion tonight is you run into somebody that seems a little extra aggressive, or someone that seems awful depressed. They're usually cheerful and they're not that anymore. Those are your signs of cabin fever. I just caught over in that chat that Will the Rocker mentioned potassium. Now, potassium doesn't actually play a role in cabin fever. However, you tend over the winters to have low potassium levels. Yeah, and it is important. There's a lot of nutrients, minerals, and the like that a person needs to make sure they stay up on throughout the winter months. It'll make your spring a lot better. Put a little spring in your step is what it'll do, even before spring. It's that half-hour mark, guys. And I'm going to be discussing of some actual cases of severe cabin fevers that I know of. Right after we just give a little, just over a minute of time just to shout out all my members out there, okay? Here we go. This will only take a little over a minute. Wonderful people. I hope you folks take to mind that every person that's a member of the channel, they're all great people, all wonderful people. That they'll add to your life. Yeah. Now, I got to mention real quick, during that little 1 minute stint there, I get a chance to just see the last few comments in the chat. And Will had mentioned potassium, and I want to go back to that for a moment because I'm glad he did. And he said it's because he gets severe Charlie horses. Okay. I got that same issue, Will. Now, your potassium levels, they seem to drop off in the winter, and it's because we usually have bad diets in the winter, and the bad diet, our eating habits, can be severely affected by cabin fever. And you have to watch those potassium levels. Now, a lot of people say, well, you got to stay high on the potassium because if you're going to exert yourself, you're going to end up with Charlie horses. Well, it goes both ways, guys. Low potassium levels, you can get Charlie horses just sitting in the same spot too long. So keeping your potassium levels up is important. And if you're one that tends to suffer from Charlie horses and you keep that potassium level up, that's one less thing you have to deal with throughout those winter months. You go out and you exert yourself in the winter, it's cold, the exertion is higher, your muscles are working harder. Your muscles don't mind working to keep your body warm. But it takes more when you're out in those cold temperatures. So if your potassium levels aren't up, you're going to end up cramping up. If you're suffering from any type of anxiety or depression to start with, and you start getting Charlie horses, the next thing you know, you become stagnant because you don't want to do anything because you might trigger a Charlie horse. All side effects of cabin fever. It's just a given. It's just part of life that's we need to be aware of and do anything we can to avoid that nasty cabin fever. Okay, for a few examples. I mean, now I've seen just a few cases personally, but I've read about many real life situations with cabin fever, and it can be devastating in certain conditions. Now, this one situation, it happened up in northern Minnesota, right on the Canadian border. There's an old guy up there. He had himself a little shack out in the woods, right on a lake. And his closest neighbor was about a mile and a half from his shack. And those folks, they basically related his story. And the it's in a sense it's a sad story, but this guy had lived there for years and years, and this closest neighbor, they knew him, they'd see him in the summers, and they'd go fishing with him on that lake. And one night, in the middle of the night, they heard a knock on the door. They heard a knock on their door, and they went to their front door, looked out the windows and the door, and didn't see anybody out there. And they thought, we must have been hearing things, and it must have been the wind making a branch on a tree hit the house or something that made them think it was somebody at the door. Well, the next morning when they went out, they had these really nice Adirondack style chairs out on their porch, and it's an open air porch. And it was a bad night. It got down to 10 below zero that night. And they went out on their porch, and here's this fella that lived about a mile and a half away from them. Here's that fella. He's sitting in one of those chairs, wearing his winter boots and his boxer shorts. That's all. And he had expired over the night. He had passed away from exposure. And they said he's sitting there, and they said they could not believe the look on his face, because they said he had this little grin, like everything's cool, everything's okay. Well, they got to talking to this other fella that lives about 6-8 miles from where they were, that lived in a trapper's shack. And they came across this fella because he was coming to their house, and they run into him out on this road. And he said, I was heading to your house because I haven't seen old what's his name that lives on that little lake up there. And they said, no, you won't either. He passed away. He showed up at our cabin and froze to death out on the front porch. And he goes, doggone it. He says, I've been going to his cabin once a week. And he says, it's quite a ways for me to hike out to his cabin. But I've been going once a week, trying to make sure that he was eating, that he was getting out, that he was okay, that he had someone to talk to. And he said, because I could tell about a month ago, he was suffering from cabin fever quite badly. And this old guy, they said, was one of the most cheerful, nicest people to just sit and talk to. He was so positive about everything. And he had gotten himself in such a depressed state that he didn't know what he should do anymore. He just didn't know. He didn't even realize, I need to eat. He didn't realize, I need to do this or I need to do that. He had lost that cognitive process. He was basically not even there anymore. And he had come around enough that he had left a note heading to so-and-so's house a mile and a half south. If you're looking for me, I'll be there. And he footnoted his note saying, their warm house and company will save me. He knew how severe his cabin fever had gotten, and he was heading to them in hopes that they could save him. They couldn't. I mean, they didn't know he was out there. Now that's severe. That's terribly severe. There's another case where it was a husband and wife team. They were up in British Columbia, living way off the grid, way out in the backcountry. And the husband ended up with severe cabin fever. No ambition. He just couldn't get himself out of bed half the time. She'd have to just fight with him to get him up and moving around. They were semi-dependent on some of the natural things in the outdoors. They didn't prep enough meat for the whole winter. So, but they figured that's not a big deal because where they lived, there was an area that was perfect where the deer would herd up and bed down in the winter. He could hike to that spot, shoot them a deer. They've got close to a month's worth of food for the two of them. It was all right there for him. Just have to go get it. Well, he had gotten to the point where he didn't even have the ambition to go get them food. So here, his wife is going and harvesting venison. She's shooting grouse. She's putting meat on the table. They had plenty of other staples, but one thing they didn't have is anything high in vitamin D content. And it was a bad winter. Lots of clouds, lots of snow, very little sunshine. And her husband was just collapsing from cabin fever. The one thing they had were goats. They had 3 goats. And she was milking 2 of those goats all winter. He hated goat's milk. And she drank goat's milk like it was going out of style. And she loved to make goat cheese. And it's packed full of vitamin D. Their goats were outside all the time. They had a nice open corral area. The goats were out there. And she'd bring, they had shelter for when it got really bad weather. And she'd go out and milk her 2 goats every day. And she was consuming that goat milk and that goat cheese. And she was getting enough vitamin D to get her through the winter. But he wasn't, because he hated goat milk, so he didn't consume any. But he was losing his vitamin D and serotonin levels severely, and it drove him into a deep depression, had no ambition whatsoever, and he started to become very aggressive. Were the simplest things, where she'd ask him, could you go out and grab a couple armloads of firewood? He'd have a big fit about it. And she said, and he never was one to raise his voice or yell about anything. And she said, the last half of that winter, she said, she was afraid to even glance at him because he'd get angry. He'd just blow up. When spring finally came and they got out of the backcountry and for new supplies and the like, she said that was difficult getting him willing to, let's go to town, let's stock up. And she said the first thing they did was she got some vitamin D supplements, convinced him to take supplements. And she said that it was just like a miracle. Within a week's time, that cabin fever was gone. The positive guy came back. The aggression disappeared 100%. And she said, however, it seemed odd that it's like his memory of all he supposedly went through this over a 3-month period. That had to have been tough for her, but she said his memory of it was so clouded, and that's because his higher mental functions were affected by the cabin fever. It's sad. It's sad, but he had someone there to provide the socialization that was necessary to get him through the cabin fever. Otherwise, he probably would have gone bonkers before spring ever showed up, and he too probably would have wandered off in the woods somewhere and froze to death. On a closer note, I knew a guy that lived in town. He lived in town, isolated all winter. That guy, he wasn't much of a social person. He didn't. There's very few people he even liked to talk to. And I remember going to his place one spring because this guy, he collected everything. And I was looking for something specific, and I thought, I bet you old Irv's got one of those. So I thought I'll go to Irv's place. And I went to his place, and it's spring. Almost all the snow is gone. It's the muddy month, it's just icky out. I went to his house, and he didn't come to the door. He came to the window and opened the window up, and he stuck his shotgun out the window. And he goes, "You're not gonna take my stuff." And I go, "Irv, hey, it's Sty, you goofball, what are you doing?" And he goes, "I don't care if you're Jesus, you ain't taking my stuff." So I beat-feeted it out of there, and I talked to one of our local law enforcement, and he got a hold of some gal that's a psychologist, whatever, and they went there and they talked old Irv down, and then they found out here this guy had gone totally wacky over the winter. He was isolated, hadn't talked to anybody, they said, for 5 months, had not talked to a single soul in 5 months, lived in his little shack. He had stocked his shack up because he figured he was getting to the point old enough where he might not be able to get to the store because he walked everywhere. So he wanted to make sure he could make it through the winter. Again, he had deprived himself of the nutrition necessary to avoid cabin fever. He had the whole game against him. Bad nutrition, no socialization. He didn't have people to talk to. So old Irv put himself in the worst place. They put him in the hospital. They said, really, they convinced him that he had some kind of health issue, had to be in the hospital. And all they did to him in the hospital is feed him. They fed him. They fed him what he needed and gave him the supplements he needed. And he was out of the hospital in a week, and he was his old self again. But it never happened ever again after that. They coached him and told him, oh, you got to drink milk, you got to do this, you got to get outdoors, and you need to touch base with people. We realize you got this little circle of friends, but you need to touch base with them throughout the winter, and stay attached. You're going to stay attached. And after that, old Irv did fine every winter after that. But that one winter, not realizing that he can actually bring on cabin fever. See, now, and that's where I was getting to that state myself, to where it's like I'd think of something and 5 minutes later, I forgot what I just thought about. I was kind of forcing myself through each day. And then I realized, this isn't like it's supposed to be. This isn't me. This isn't the way things are. And that's when I realized, oh boy, I bet you anything, my serotonin and my vitamin D levels are crashing. So I fix it. And otherwise, in another month, I'd probably be on here and it'd be crazy Sty Times because I'd be on here babbling like more of a fool than I am, right? The the but cabin fever can mess you up. With us here, there's no excuse for it. I had no excuse for suffering it like I did earlier because I've got you guys. We've got the socialization, right? We've got the socialization. We just got to make sure to eat right. We got to make sure that we do things that are good for us. And sometimes it's as simple as doing something that will make you happy, and that's it. That's it. Cabin fever starts making you feel that depression. And it's like nothing can make me happy anymore. And I tell you what makes me happy is a big old piece of cheesecake. So I bought a cheesecake yesterday. And I haven't had a piece yet, but I'm going to have a piece tonight. I shouldn't be eating cheesecake, but oh yeah, I'm having a piece tonight because it's going to make me happy. It'll make me happy. And it's only one piece, so it's good for me too, right? Yeah. I hope everybody out there, got a little something out of tonight's topic. I was going to have a guest Friday, but I was unable. I didn't get a hold of the person today and make arrangements. So there won't be a guest this Friday. There possibly will be a couple guests next week, but I'll definitely have one for next Friday. So this Friday's, it'll be a new topic. It'll be a new topic for Friday. It's kind of an interesting one. I know there's going to be a lot of people with different views on the topic, and that's good. That's good. Sharing different views on any topic is where we want to go. I mean, that's it. I look at things as, yeah, we need to live life to its fullest, and sharing is really helping us do that. Sharing with each other anything that we know or think we know or should know, we should talk about. I mean, people are always saying, well, I don't know if that's exactly right, but we're talking, are we? We're, so I don't know. Maybe we're not right. Maybe we're totally wrong. Maybe we're off the wall. But we're communicating, we're interacting, we're enjoying each other's company, and we're making our lives that much fuller, So I've got 6 minutes left, and I'm going to take a peek at what you guys are saying right now in the chat and see. Me Dibble says my connection with the outside world is my computer. If I did not have it, I would not survive. I live in a big city, but rarely leave the house. There you go, Me Dibble. There you go. I love that. That's exactly what I was saying. Interaction is important. Samantha says cheesecake's awesome. Cindy's saying yes, cheesecake is awesome. We had cheesecake with topping bar at our wedding. There you go. You got the multiple toppings and the nice cheesecakes, and you can do whatever you want. I love it. Yeah. See, I got a strawberry swirl cheesecake, and just to add insult to injury, I put home canned blueberry pie filling on top of it. Ain't that terrible? But it's good for me because I love it. It makes me happy. The Will the Rocker saying, Uncle Sty, I'm eating Chick-fil-A with Mom, Dad. Have a wonderful, blessed night and week. You too, Willow Rocker, and enjoy your Chick-fil-A. Ha ha. Neighbor girl says, sometimes I feel like I talk too much, so I try to be quiet most times. See, and that's it. Is I love it when somebody says I don't really. I'd rather listen than say anything. My sister is that way. My last surviving sibling. Oh, I can get her to talk. Growing up, oh, she was the silent one, just silent about everything. And you knew she's paying attention, listening to everything, but she never had nothing to say. When we became adults, yeah, her and I spent a lot of time together when I was in my late teens and traveled together and went to great places. And it didn't take long. All of a sudden, there she goes. There she goes. She starts yakking away. And now when I get together with her, she's so quiet to start with. And then she realizes, no, I am more than willing to shut my mouth and hear your story. You bet. Well, thank you, Canoe Hound. I'm glad you enjoyed. I hope you guys enjoyed the chat over there. I hope a few of you hit that form, that feedback form. I'm going to post it one more time if anybody wants to fill out that form for me. It's also in the description of the video. So when this posts, after it's done, it's down in the description. You can click on that form at any time related to this show and fill it out. It only takes a minute or so. So Samantha's mom makes strawberry pizza with graham cracker crust, cheesecake, strawberries, and strawberry glaze. I'm going to kidnap your mom. That's sweet. That's wonderful. I love it. Thank you, Phil. Everything spicy. Great stream tonight. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Glad you enjoyed it. I think I'm going to enjoy this show. A lot of topics to touch on, and we're going to like I have said, and it says in the intro to it, we don't know where this is going to go. We take it all over. Yeah. I look at the show as we're going to take a short trip to somewhere. We just don't know where until it pops up. Thank you, Cindy. Yeah, Phil stayed awake this time. That's amazing. We're down to that 1 minute mark, folks, and I want to thank everybody out in that chat, all of the viewers that have been hanging out. It's been a great hour this evening, and I hope to see you all Friday night, same time, 5 p.m. Central Time, here for Sty Times. And if you watch this little exit clip, you'll see what next Friday's topic is. Okay? Love all of you. Thank you for being here. This is all about you. We'll get this exit going, and I'll see you all. Well, tomorrow night is around the campfire, so if you want to hang out around the campfire, come on over tomorrow night. And if you can't make it, make it on Friday to Sty Times. And we'll see you all then. Bye-bye.